Hello, everyone. It is my joy to be here. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for being here with us, and especially at this most important time in history. We are living at a profound place in time. It is the changing of the history of humanity, and we cannot afford to not know this. One of the greatest lessons I've learned in these most recent times is that crisis does not change people. It reveals them. And how we do crisis is how we do life. Now, I must make it clear. I am not a subject matter expert. I'm a life expert. And one of my life rules is that I can only speak it if I have had direct experience of it. I can only teach it if I myself have walked the walk. I can only speak it if I myself have overcome the many adversities and conquered the many challenges in this game called business and in this game called life. I am a working CEO. And I have fought deep in the trenches of business life for the last 20 years. I have the stories, the lessons, the awards, the rewards, as well as the battle scars to prove it. You see, there is a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. Learning how to walk the path was literally beaten into me at a very young age. I started working full-time when I was just 7 years old. You see, my family and I are boat people. We escaped Vietnam after the war. When Saigon fell to communist rule in 1975, my father built a boat and smuggled us out into the South China Sea. I was 3 years old at the time, and my brother Louis was 2. My father was determined that if we died, we would all die together. We spent 9 days out at sea, and we ended up in Thailand, where we spent a very difficult year in a refugee camp there, and it's where my mother gave birth to my brother Luke in a little lean-to tent. And in 1978, Australia finally accepted us. We came into this new world with nothing. Nothing. No house, no job, no money. We didn't know the laws, the language, or the systems. My father suffered terribly from post-traumatic stress disorder. It was a condition that he had acquired from the war. And on top of this, the mounting pressure of having to care for a sick wife. My mother had tuberculosis, having to provide for 2 young children as well as a newborn baby in this foreign land. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? And so the mounting pressure, my father befriended anger and rage and frustration on a regular basis. And it wasn't long until he started to offload his anger on my mother, and soon he started to offload his anger on us kids as well. If someone were to ask me now what it is that I remember most about my childhood, it would be the overwhelming stench of fear. Fear followed me everywhere that I went. Fear stayed with me every day. I know what fear smells like. And so when a crisis hits, I ask myself, Pauline, what has your life already demonstrated? What has your life already demonstrated? And when I ask myself this question in business, I'm often reminded of how many times I've been asked in interviews and in conversations, how is it that your restaurant, Red Lantern, is still around after 18 years? And what do you guys do to compete in such a saturated, fickle, and competitive industry? And my answer always throws them. You see, I don't view the top restaurants in Sydney as our competitors. Why would I waste my valuable time and my valuable energy focusing on what the others are doing? I know where I would rather face my valuable time, and that is on my internal ecology, the internal ecology of my body, my mind, my heart, my spirit, as well as the internal ecology of my own organization. It is our internal ecology that matters most. We must write our own rules. We must run our own race. And we're still around simply because we have more grit than anyone else we know. We understand that persistency is the new currency. We must practice never give upology. And there's something to be said for still staying in the game long after the others have given up. Because the universe rewards the unreasonably determined. And so Red Lantern has been in business for 18 years. This places us in the top 3% of businesses in the world, the top 3% of businesses in the world that have survived more than 15 years in business. We have survived a multitude of economic downturns. We conquered the global financial crisis. And we're still around because this is what we understand. We understand that change is the only constant. Change is the only constant. Not only must we be expecting change, we must be embracing change. Not only must we be embracing change, we must become the change. We must learn to continue to create, innovate, collaborate. And what is innovation? What is innovation? Innovation is simply taking the same way we have always done things, shaking it up and asking what's working, what's not working, pulling out what's not working and implementing new systems, listening to new voices, learning new concepts, becoming new people so that we can be better than before. Charles Darwin puts it so beautifully in his Law of Evolution. It is not the strongest of the species that survive, but the ones most responsive to change. I would add that it's no longer about survival of the fittest. It is about survival of the most fitting, the ones who are the most adaptable, malleable, flexible, mobile, agile. The ones who understand human behavior and understand human potential, the ones who know how to get along with people, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how long you've been in business. If you don't know how to adapt with these ever-changing times, if you don't know how to get the most out of your people, you will perish. Because in business and in life, there are no weak ones who make it. We must become the change before we are forced to change. And so when a crisis hits, I ask myself, Pauline, what has your life already demonstrated? And time again, my life has demonstrated that the game of business mastery is the game of mastering influence. And the first person we must master influence over is ourselves. Self-mastery is key because as leaders, and we are all leaders here. As leaders, it is our responsibility in the face of any adversity to show up with dignity, grace, and poise. It is our responsibility as leaders to always show up with calm courage, resonating resilience, and tacit grit, to not freak out or play victim or complain and panic. As leaders, and we are all leaders here, it is our responsibility to snatch as much positive value and to make as many powerful meanings as possible for any obstacle that comes our way. As leaders, it is our responsibility to use every obstacle as the opportunity to master ourselves a little bit more, and to use the obstacle as a platform whereby we continuously demonstrate and continually prove to our people why we are deserved of the position that we hold. And so in times of adversity, we must become leaders of sanity, not just leaders of solutions, because calm is contagious, and so is fear. As leaders, we are always being watched. We must become the change before we are forced to change. And so when this pandemic hit, I asked myself, Pauline, what has your life already demonstrated? And I look back on my life and I look back on my upbringing and I see it as my training. It was my training. COVID-19 saw the borders close and the immediate halt of the live event industry. This is not fun news for an international speaker. COVID-19 meant the closure of public dining spaces and eateries. This is not fun news for a restaurant owner. Pauline, what has your life already demonstrated? My life has demonstrated that time and time again, I show up in the face of any adversity with dignity, grace, and poise. I show up with calm courage, resonating resilience, and tacit grit. Overnight, we reinvented ourselves. Overnight, we pivoted. And what does it mean to pivot? To pivot means a redirection of your focus, a redirection of your energy. Overnight, I redirected my focus and energy so that I stood in a position of power and poise rather than in a position of panic. Overnight, I took my keynotes online, I took my workshops and my masterclasses online, and now I can reach more people. How amazing is that? Overnight, the Red Lantern restaurant had to release all ego. All Ego, the most awarded Vietnamese restaurant, now offered takeaway and delivery. Whatever it takes to still stay in the game and stay ahead of the game. Whatever it takes to remain in spirit and inspired, because it's only when we are in a state of inspiration can we be our most creative, can we be at our best. And also, we are always being watched. We must become the change before we are forced to change. And we have to agree. We've all witnessed it. Change is here to stay. Change is here to stay. The disruption to the world economies caused by COVID-19, it's estimated that 195 million jobs will be wiped out. Globally, 195 million jobs wiped out. But this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. We are entering an age now where change will be more monumental. So according to the UN labor body, the most in demand, the most fast growing skill set for 2020 and beyond are the soft skills of compassionate leadership, courageous leadership, change management, innovation, having a growth mindset, possessing grit. And then, of course, the innately human skills, they will be more valuable than ever before. Critical thinking, strategy, influence, the art of storytelling and persuasion. And it's not good enough to change just to be in the game. We have to learn to change rapidly and transform rapidly in order to stay ahead of the game. And so I ask you, in these times of rapid change, how did you show up as an individual? How did your organization respond? How did your leaders lead? Who embraced change? Who became the change? Who resisted change? Who will be left behind? And as we are writing this new chapter, a more important question needs to be asked. Am I proud of the way I responded? And what did I contribute during this time? How did I push forward humanity without forgetting my humanness? And in these times of rapid change, we will see organizations and corporations and governments need to transform and transform fast, and so must its people. The question now is, will you transform in a state of dignity, grace, and poise? Will you transform with calm courage, resonating resilience, and tacit grit?